All right, welcome to the Lake Mills Area School District regular meeting of this Board of Education. The mission statement for the Lake Mills Area School District is preparing all of today's students for tomorrow's opportunities. Has the meeting been properly posted?
Yes, it was posted on the LMASD website and at the Lake Mills Post Office and submitted to the Lake Mills Leader.
All right. I will then call this homecoming week meeting to order, and happy homecoming to all in attendance and following us online. Please invite all that are able and willing to stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May I have a roll call meeting or a roll call for attendance?
Brianna Beselick.
Here.
Andrea Graham.
Here.
Ken Eimers.
Here.
Kirk Lund.
Here.
Amy Litcher.
Here. Are there any revisions to the agenda?
I would like to move that we change our order in our board reports to A down further to allow for our student rep to potentially join us later.
Okay. All right, that it is not required to have a second for an agenda approval. So all those in favor, voice vote, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? All right, then we will move to the student board representative oath of office till the latest part of the meeting. All right. Are there any other revisions to the agenda? Hearing none, we will move on to the facility committee proceedings, and that is me. The facility committee's meeting met on September 19th, and we went through the items that are on the list, but we went through the items and are going to prioritize these at the next meeting and asked Rod Hutchins to create a roof replacement cycle. The items on the list are middle school tennis courts, because the insurance company said that they were a safety concern, high school grease traps, high school auditorium sound system, high school curtain divider between the cafeteria and the old auditorium. And then also was discussed the lack of space for the rec department. And because several of the projects were completed ahead of time due to ESSER funds, the annual meeting this past month only approved for a capital expansion fund at $85,000. So that is due to the district using ESSER funds for items. So, Tasha, do you have anything else for that?
I don't.
Okay, are any questions?
Is, on the list, is 1 the highest priority or 5? Or on this thing here,
Oh,
or is that,
They're not prioritized quite yet.
they're not?
We got all of the items on the list, and so at the next meeting, like Amy stated, we were going to work with Harv and Rod and start to really look at like what needed to be done first and what could maybe be put off. But the biggest thing is just looking at the upcoming budget along with those priorities to make sure that we'd have funding available to be able to, take advantage of what, is coming up ahead. So we just, with the last long-range facility plan, we somewhat finished out just because we did get ahead of it with the ESSER money. So there was just a need to look at newer projects and then put those on a list so that we'd be able to address those as funds were available.
Just one other question is, are things like, let's take sports, like replacing a tennis net or fixing something in the athletic area. Are those things kind of built into an athletic budget, whereas these would be more larger projects?
Yeah,
Do you know?
so like the consumable things typically are, like you said, like, if it's a tennis net, that would come out of the athletic budget, but the actual tennis courts would come out of the facilities budget. So things that were more of the fixed assets, I would say, come
Yeah.
out of the facilities budget.
Sorry, I forgot to ask earlier, so if you need to check and get back to me, I get it. Is the insurance company, do they have any like deadlines for us as to when we need to finish this project, or options that we could give to them as to what we might do if we decide not to do one thing versus the other? Have they set any of those deadlines?
They just want to either know the plan of what's going to happen or, yeah, I mean, there isn't a hard deadline. We have, I think it's the end of next week when we can respond to them online, but if there's progress towards it or just our plan is what they're looking for
Okay.
at this point.
And
And then, Ken, to answer on I think you were looking at the priority levels, the 5s and the ones that are in a couple of them, 5 being the highest priority and 1 being less of a priority, but those are in the process.
And do you happen to know if that court that has a basketball as well and some pickleball, is it just generally anything played on that surface is a safety issue? Like,
Yes, it's just accessing the tennis courts right now
Yeah.
is a problem.
okay,
And the block wall, I remembered the block wall was talked about, that it's just a cement block wall, and the wear and tear on that is
oh, okay,
a safety concern as well.
okay.
I understood that there's some boulders there and they're coming loose, and so kids are able to grab big rocks and carry them around. So
Okay, thank you.
And then the next meeting is on October 17th at 10 a.m. All our and it's an open meeting, so all board for sure and public are willing to, or are welcome to attend that. And at that point, we will be updating, there's a version of Long Range Facilities Plan March 2021 on the district website, and at that point, we will be updating that.
Okay.
All right, with no other questions, I will move back to 2A and welcome Lilia. All right.
Lilia Geshko.
Yes.
I'm Ken.
Hi.
We have a process I need to swear you in.
Okay.
And probably what would be the easiest is I'll give you something to read. And basically just raise your right hand and read this little paragraph here.
Okay.
Right here.
Go now?
Yeah, go
Okay.
ahead.
I, Liliana Geshko, who has been duly appointed to the Board of Education of the Lake Mills Area School District, but have not yet entered upon the duties thereof, swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of Wisconsin, and will faithfully discharge the duties of said office to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Thank you. Terrific. Now we can each sign this. If you wanted to sign right up there.
And while you're signing it, we welcome you definitely to the board.
Yes.
And we'll very much hear your updates.
Great to have you. Yes. All right. Thanks.
All right. And if you would like, you can, a little bit with your update or about yourself.
Well, I'm a senior at Lake Mills High School, and I was late today because I thought it was at the high school, so I went there, and then I came here. I play soccer for the school. I play girls soccer. I'm in NHS. I'm on student council. I'm also in the Interact Club, and I think that's mostly it for what I do. Do you just want me to give you an update on school now?
Yeah.
Okay, so right now in school, it's homecoming week. It just started today. So we are preparing for our homecoming game. on Friday, we're gonna have like a shortened schedule, and then in the afternoon, we'll do all of our like preparing the school, and we kind of just decorate the school with our grade respective like categories. So we're doing Candyland as like an overall theme. So then the seniors, for example, have Candyland. So we get to decorate our hallways and our floats and all that with Candyland themes. So it's pretty fun. And then Wednesday we'll have like the homecoming activities. So like Powder Puff football and Ironman volleyball, and then a big bonfire after. And then I did some little looking into how sports are doing. The fall sports are all doing really good. Claudia Curtis is going to, I think, state for tennis, which is really awesome. And girls and boys track is doing really well. Football is doing pretty well as well. Soccer, they all shook their head and they're like, I don't want to talk about it. But as far, I think they're doing pretty well too. I think they've won like 8 games, so I don't know why they're super disappointed in that. But yeah, and then mountain biking or whatever that club is called is also doing really well. They're going to some sort of sectionals meet, I think, in 2 weeks actually. So they're all very excited for that. And yeah, I think that's mostly it for the school right now.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. Moving on to 3A, it's Ms. J.B. Everson, Director of Student Services, and the Seclusion and Restraint Report.
Well, first of all, I wanted to formally thank you all for allowing me to be in this position of Director of Student Services and serve the students and families of Lake Mills. It's been a pleasure to reconnect with families and students at the high school and middle school level that I spent a lot of time with at the elementary. I've been able to see them come full circle into high school, some into the transition program, as well as in middle school. So it's been incredible. Thank you. Moving on to the Seclusion and Restraint Report, you had time to review the numbers on the report. As you read, they've increased slightly from last school year. If you have specific questions about that, please connect with me. I'd be happy to talk in more detail while keeping the student information confidential. What I'd like to focus in on during my time up here is what we've done as a district to reverse that increase. Every school year in February, our special education staff, paras, teachers, specialists, are trained with the NVCI training, nonviolent crisis intervention training, as well as our general ed staff. Not all of them, but quite a few of our general ed staff, as well as our administration. This year, we bumped that up to August to give it to our staff just in time for the school year to start, to make sure that we were ready for the school year to start and get out ahead of it. Last year in October, when we saw the numbers increasing, we did a NVCI refresher course with the elementary staff, which is where we saw the numbers trending upward. And what we did was we reviewed the key components of the program, such as primarily focusing on the proactive strategies, such as the de-escalation strategies. That's really the ultimate goal of the program, is to focus on what we can do at the front end to avoid the reactive. We also met after every incident to make adjustments to the student's plan. We meet as a school team, as well as including the parents. And then lastly, this year we were able to hire a third NVCI trainer within our district. His name is David Woodford, our school counselor at the middle school. He joined Kathleen Crane, our occupational therapist, and myself as the district trainers. It's been really, really helpful to have our trainers in the district in-house to consult with whenever we need to, and to hold trainings whenever we need the refresher courses. We do everything we can to avoid these situations, and we only use them as a last resort in a safety situation. And we'll continue to do that. Do you have any questions?
Is it possible to get some specific information on the content of the NVCI training?
Yes, I can do that. Would you like me to follow up with an email?
That'd be great. Yeah.
Okay, I can definitely get you that information. Anything else?
Do we have like paraprofessional that is strictly behavior support, or like, I guess, what's the programming like for students who are struggling? What's the protocol for when someone's having a hard time? Does the principal come?
It's really a school team approach. So often, it depends. We usually have a lead person for every student in the building, I would say, whether it's a student service member, it's a special education teacher, an administrator, and we tend to have a kind of an order of responding to that. For some of our students with behavior, yes, we do have paraeducators that work closely with them and do have, all of our paraeducators are trained in NVCI that do have the training to follow up. But then again, if there is an incident, we meet as a school team with the people that were involved, along with one of our trainers, to make sure we're making the right adjustments proactively for the student.
Are there other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to Ms. Erin Schlischlach, and for the presentation of the school goals.
Just move that mic down a little bit. All right, so tonight we have members from our administrative team from each building here to present their school goals that they put into place for this year. And we did things a little differently this year, so I wanted to provide a little update prior to them coming up and presenting those goals so that you had that background. Can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So we actually started our work in July and August with our administrative team, looking at the data, really looking for those opportunity gaps, areas for growth, and then specifically looking at our subgroup data and the target data, which is the part that you find on our report cards when they talk about the growth area. So we really wanted to focus in on those students. We began pulling all of the data together for our building level data team. So we were looking at our iReady diagnostic data, FMP, ACG4, all of that good stuff. Plus at the high school level, they pulled grades too. In mid-August, building administrators and myself led their building leader, like data teams, into digging into the data. And in doing that, really found some trends and things that they wanted to focus on for their whole school goals. And then when teachers returned, staff started looking at specific students. So really putting names to those numbers. And, you know, here's the school goal that the data team came up with. How are we going to action plan around and meet these goals? And so each of the buildings created a PDSA form that they're going to use, so Plan, Do, Study, Act, for their goals. So they selected their goal, they've identified their action steps, and they are monitoring those monthly in terms of implementation. How close are they? How is it moving them towards their goal? Adding action steps if needed. And then all of our staff are creating their student learning goals, their SLOs, based on how they're going to support one of the building goals. So for tonight, our process is each building is going to present their goals, and these goals all align with our strategic plan. When they present their information, they're going to provide you the rationale for the goal, the actual goal statement, and then 2 or 3 of the key action monitoring steps. It's not all of them. You know, for some of their goals, they're at, 7, 8 different things. They're going to go high school, middle school, elementary school. And I know Amy reached out about some specific data, so if there's any questions you have about specific data, if you want to let me know, I can pull that for you. I didn't have them bring all the data with them tonight. They've spent a lot of time in that data. They continue to live in it, but I didn't have them come with all of the spreadsheets and numbers and stuff. So I have my pen and my paper, and I will jot things down and get that information to you as needed. So with all of that being said, Kale, you are up first.
Well, forgive me if I'm a little rusty. It's been a while since I've been up here talking. I think for us, goal one, that's not my goal. There we go. Oh, that's all right. Kind of looking at our trends, and we kind of went a little bit different way from looking at Aspire or ACT data, which we've done in the past. I think myself and the rest of the admin team and the staff really wanted something that we could get really our hands on, was more manageable for us, or tangible, I should say. So looking through some of the grade data, we definitely saw that looking at something that could affect graduation rates, something that could affect standardized testing, something that could affect college and career readiness as core completion of core classes and completing those with a passing grade. So we looked at kind of the we have DF list, but we kind of looked at the F list concerning each of the grade levels and found that throughout the several of the years that our freshman class was failing more core classes than our sophomores, juniors, and seniors. So a little bit of data on that. I think last year's freshman class, so we're using those numbers for this freshman class, 13% of our students failed a core class first semester, and then 11% of our students failed a class second semester. So our goal is to reduce that, so down about 5%, hopefully by the end of first semester, looking at first semester, and then looking at second semester grades. So, our rationale is again a more hands-on approach. Looking at freshman completion of core classes, and then again, kids completing those core classes in a more successful manner, hopefully leading to even a higher graduation rate for Lake Mills High School. Less remedial classes having to take in the summer and the subsequent years, and then hopefully strengthen state assessment scores. So our goal statement, by the end of the 22-23 school year, 95% of our freshmen will be on track to graduate. And other measures as measured by successful core class completion. Key action steps, we've had a number of meetings already, grade level. We're also, one of our building goals is the freshman level, but we also have grade level teams for our sophomore class, junior class, and senior class, looking at core completion. So we create and hold monthly grade level meetings, team meetings. Progress monitoring could be a number of things. We have progress monitoring forms that have been filled out. Our staff, for the first time, went over those today after school. Mid-quarter progress reports that come out mid-quarter, and then also looking at quarter grades, and various teacher reports that kind of goes into the progress monitoring forms that are going to be out on a monthly basis. And then utilize, as we look over that material as our grade level teams meet, utilize various strategies and promising practices to help individual students get back on track. Goal number 2, it's kind of a continuation of a goal that we've had since got hit hard with COVID. And it's a social, emotional, and learning goal, and getting our students connected back to our school community, getting our kids connected back to a trusted adult in the building. So we did a lot of work with our SEL committee and our staff last year. We're going to continue that. Rationale for this, based upon the number of work that happened last year, When we increased, we did from a survey beginning of last year, it was something about 65% of our student body felt connected to an adult in the building. Through various things we've done in advisory and the SEL curriculum, we did an end of the year survey, and that was at 77% of our student body felt connected to an adult in the building. The 56%, that wasn't the entire student body. That was our freshman class from last year. So even lower than the student body. So our goal statement, by the end of this school year, 90% of the student body will have an adult in the district that they will feel connected to or feel that they can talk to as measured by the student SEL survey. Action steps for us, we're going to continue our new SEL curriculum, and that's during advisory. We really don't start that till after homecoming. After this week, we'll get started in that twice a week. Lessons consist of topics as organization, time management, peer-adult relationships, and much more. And we won't do our first survey till the end of November when we have roughly maybe 7 to 10 lessons in with our students on a number of these topics. Any questions?
Just a question on the, I think you termed it an SOL, student,
SLO? SLO?
SLO, I'm sorry. SLO goals.
This is the last goal was a SEL goal, social and emotional learning goal for our students.
Okay.
The SLO is something, the student learning objective, that's a little bit different.
Right. Does that become, Aaron mentioned that kind of gets folded in, considered as part
Yeah,
of it.
for
Is that an
our
action?
building for the high school, their student learning objective basically is our goal number 1.
Okay.
So everyone takes an ownership, whether they're on a freshman team, sophomore team, junior team, or senior team, on reducing the number of Fs at a semester.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question about, could you give just some examples of the strategies used to help students get back on track? Is there, just to help us understand a little bit more about?
Yeah, I mean, there's
action. Yeah.
lots of them. Could be, a big foundation of that is our advisory teachers and the kids that have that free time during advisory or scheduled time to catch up on some things. Could be peer-to-peer mentoring, could be, staying after school, connecting to certain core teachers, could be retake assessment policies as far as looking at summative assessments. Could be maybe check in, check out with our counselors and or maybe even an advisory teacher taking charge of that, depending on who the student is. So just a couple off the top of my head.
Thank you. And then also how often do parents see grades and how are they kind of
So
included in all this?
parents have access to our Skyward system, so they're able to check up on their students' grades at any time they want. We send out a mid-progress report, so that's basically every 4.5 weeks, we send an update to our parents.
Okay.
And that's paper copy of our Skyward the Skyward grades.
And then for these 11 or 13% of these kids that maybe are on the verge of failing, are we making phone calls to them or how does?
Yeah, I would say probably 99% of the time we're making contact with them as early as possible.
Okay. Thank you.
All
That
right,
it?
thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, everybody. So I'm here to share the middle school's goals. And so the first goal that the middle school has is around our English language learners. When we looked at our data from our English language learners, they take a test, an assessment called the Access Assessment. And the Access Assessment kind of gives them a proficiency level. And so the goal would be to move through, it's like 7 levels, 7 being exiting the EL program, or English language learner program. And so when we looked at that data, and really Jessica Noche, our coordinator that you guys approved, it had helped me look at that data, and we found that at the middle school level in particular, our EL students were really struggling to grow in the last year. We had actually 69% of them had a decline in their performance on that Access Assessment. So pretty concerning number, certainly something that we wanted to jump on and try to address right away. So our goal statement was by the end of the 22-23 school year, we'll have 60% of our EL student population in grades 5 through 8 will improve their reading and writing can-dos by one step. So the can-dos are really associated with that access assessment. The access assessment is actually given in I want to say it's January. It's in the middle of the year. And so we didn't want to use that as our goal statement because it doesn't give us a whole year to really grow those students. But the can-do statements are from WIDA, and they are directly driven around the access assessment. And so the can-dos are what can a student do at this point in time, and our goal is obviously to grow them towards further and further along that continuum of proficiency. So that's a way that we can measure their growth over time without just waiting for that access test or using just that access test, so we can look at it throughout the course of our entire school year. So what things that we've done and will continue to do, one of the biggest things that we did, and this is quite honestly before I even stepped into the role, is they really focused on class placement for our students and making sure that the supports that we have in Jessica Noche and Megan Collins, our EL team, can really access those students and help support them in the classrooms. And so we looked at how can we place our students into classes so that those teachers have access to those students and can really support them. And so, for example, in our 5th grade, we have a fairly high population of students who are English language learners, and Jessica is really pushing into that classroom and supporting those students, many of those students in the classroom that she works with. We also are spending a little bit of, actually a good chunk of our time on some strategies within our entire staff. So what are strategies that are effective for helping our EL population grow? And again, Jessica and Megan are really helping support us through that and teaching us what are strategies that are going to be effective for students that may have limited English proficiencies. And so they're coming into our classes or into our time with our staff, and they're teaching our staff some of those things. They're also teaching what are those WIDA can-do statements. What do those actually mean? What are they asking for, and what does that progression look like? And then they will continue Jessica and Megan are actually coming in at the end of this month to help support our staff and share a bunch of those strategies. And then once they share kind of the large range of strategies, they're going to push into our individual team meetings, our grade level team meetings, and meet with our staff through that avenue to make sure that staff don't have any questions or understand and are able to implement those strategies in classes. And so they'll be doing that from then until the end of the year, really, to help support our students. So that was goal 1. Goal 2 is around our proficiency of our male readers. And so when we looked at our data, we found that our males perform not as well as our female students do on our standardized tests. So both the forward exam and our iReady assessments, we see a pretty significant gap between our male and female students in reading in particular. Math is pretty similar. You might find minor fluctuations, but it really kind of goes both ways. But consistently, our male readers are performing lower than our female readers. I will say, honestly, that's not inconsistent with what we see throughout the state a little bit, but it's something that we, as a building leadership team, when we looked at this data, it was something that we wanted to try to tackle and really try to focus on a bit this year. You can see an example. Again, this is just one example, but on our forward exam from last year, 36.4% of our male readers were advanced or proficient as compared to 48.2% of our female readers. So we set our goal as increasing the performance of male students on the spring iReady reading assessment. This goal will be accomplished if 70% of our male students meet their typical growth and 40% of our male students meet their stretch growth on the iReady or spring iReady assessment. And so we used those numbers because they were about 15% higher than this past year. So this past year, on the iReady reading assessment in spring, we had actually about 50% of our male students met their typical growth, and about 25% of our male students met their stretch growth. And so we really focused on those because we really thought if we can increase that on iReady, which we get to measure throughout the year, that's going to have an impact on our forward assessment as well. We see a pretty close correlation between our iReady and our forward. So Our action steps, these are sort of, I would say, I put in like the categories of action steps here. We kind of had 3 different categories that we saw. And what we did as a building leadership team is we tried to compile like some of the best practices and research around how to impact male readers. And we spent a bunch of time in our building leadership team reading that research. We kind of split it up amongst different members of our team. And we came back and looked at what were the strategies that were suggested from that research. And so things that the big kind of like overarching umbrella things were access and engagement in high interest reading materials. And so an example of how we're already attacking that goal is that we're really looking at our library media specialist, Ethan Flurkey, has done an amazing job putting together resources in the library. But quite frankly, our staff didn't even know it was all there. And there's a ton of resources around different types of materials other than just maybe your traditional novel reading that do tend to engage our male readers more based on kind of what we read in the research. We also want to increase our exposure to our male reading role models. And so we have some work to do in this goal. One of the things that we're talking about is the drop everything and read. During our core time, we have a chunk of our day that's called core. We were thinking about using some of that time, not all of it, but some of that time throughout the week to do a drop everything and read and really have access to the adults in our building, because we do have a lot of males in our building, and allow those people to be male role models when they're doing that during that time and coming into classrooms and reading with the kids. And then lastly, develop and grow social reading opportunities. So what we read about in the research was really that those opportunities for social reading, for our males in particular, really do help. And the example that they gave, and I thought was kind of fascinating, was not all males certainly, but if you go into some of our students' class, or you go talk to some of our males and you ask them about, like, say, fantasy football, and you say, hey, I got these 2 running backs, like, tell me who I should play, and they will, like, explain in detail why you should play this running back versus this running back. And the reality of that is such a skill that we look for in our students. We want them to make an argument, we want them to support it with reasoning and evidence, and they can do that work when we put it into those contexts. So it's really kind of finding those opportunities for our males to excel at that, and then teaching them how does that then play into maybe looking at 2 articles and comparing them and using the same skills that they did to tell me which running back was the most effective, to tell me which article is making the best point and why. So the clubs we put up there were like a fantasy football club, for example, or a leadership club, and getting opportunities to read some of those leadership articles. And that really came out of Steve Considine, by the way. He sends out some wonderful leadership articles that we were going to beg, borrow, and steal. So questions I can answer for you.
Do you find the writing skill kind of follows the reading? Is that kind of the idea?
I think they're pretty related. Yeah. When we look at our forward assessment, that's where we see our writing play out the most directly assessed on that forward assessment. And yeah, it aligned with what we saw in our reading as well.
Thank you.
Sure.
Can you decipher the stretch growth versus the typical growth?
Yeah, so iReady is, that's an iReady kind of terminology, right? And so typical growth would be the growth that we would expect a student to make in a year. So if, it's like a year's worth of growth, so to speak. And they set that based on that diagnostic in the fall. And so they can kind of give us that, right? They say it's, they should grow about 18 points would be what we would expect the student, if they're at this proficiency level now, that would be their typical growth. And then their stretch growth is really looking at about like a year and a half's worth of growth. That's as I understand it, it's about a year and a half's worth of growth. So, and they give us that number too. So it's a really helpful, easy, accessible tool for us to look at when we're trying to do our measuring.
So our students who are below grade level are going to have, so kids who are at or above grade level aren't going to have a stretch growth goal necessarily?
They still have one on there as well, yep. Okay. Yep. But yeah, so with those students that are below grade level, really their stretch growth, the idea is that they're closing that gap.
And then the other thing I really like these goals, and I love the focus on just the kids becoming readers and having interest in reading. Recently, I did see a quote that really struck me too. It was just, the best test-taking strategy is to be able to read the words on the test.
Yep.
And so I guess I'm just wondering, are there interventions at this level? I'm just wondering, is this group of students, has their data always looked poor, where they just haven't I mean, even just looking at 48% of our kids, less than half are proficient or advanced. So what's the plan for like actual reading skills, whether it's phonics or comprehension or whatever that is? How are we pushing into that?
Absolutely. So yeah, we along with this, right, we did, and we just are kind of working through right now our data, kind of individual grade level data retreats. So in that, we're looking at students that scored below like the 25th percentile and down, and looking at that's one snapshot. So we're trying to look at a wider picture. Is this representative of this student as a reader or as a mathematician, for that matter? We do it with math as well. And then we're looking at what is it that we can do to support them. And so that could involve intervention with like our interventionist / reading specialist, Katie Hoffman. We're also using some of our staff in time that they have as additional like prep time. They had a few extra minutes, so we're using some staff to push into other classrooms and support there as well. And so we're working through that process of identifying who those students might be and what skills they might need, and then pushing in to provide some of those.
Do you feel like you have enough intervention support at the middle school level, or is that something that needs to increase?
I think I'm going to have to live it for a little bit to really know, because we're not quite, we're like I said, we're just kind of on the front edge of that, but I certainly feel like we have some really great staff that I'm excited about tapping into, but I can certainly come back to you at some point.
Okay, I'm just
I'll gladly
thinking, like,
ask if we need
next
it.
year when we're looking at budgets and things down the
Yeah.
line, so, okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks.
I know, I just wanted to say that I provided a question about your specific goals and why math wasn't included, because on the DPI website, the goal or the proficiency for math decreased from the last year it was purported to, I mean, whatever years are on there, they went down.
Yep.
And just to provide the numbers, it definitely went up, because Aaron, thank you for providing the numbers. So that's why I had that question and wanted to provide that information, so.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
I'm surrounded by all these tall gentlemen. Hi, thanks for having us back. Our first goal is in literacy, and the data had shown us that many of our students at this foundational level were underperforming in phonemic awareness and overall phonics skills, so that's the focus of our literacy goal. So our goal specifically, we looked at the data from last year, but we are using fall data that we just took in September. So this goal is going to be a fall to spring. So 80% of our students by the spring of 2023 who did not meet grade level proficiency in phonemic awareness and phonics will demonstrate at or above grade level proficiency as measured by grade level specific assessments. I know that's kind of a mouthful. Depending on the grade level of the student. So our kindergarten and first grade students, we're using the Heggerty assessment, which is an assessment that the teacher sits right next to the student. It's one-on-one together as they're giving them different sounds and doing that assessment that way. For second through fourth grade, it's the iReady assessment that you've heard about. And listening to Chuck talk about stretch goal, that's really what we're looking for many of our students, to be able to have more than 1 year's growth and make up for some of that time as they're striving for proficiency. The most important work are the action steps here that we're doing. So our teacher professional learning with best practices in phonemic awareness. So phonemic awareness is really the basis, the foundation of the sounds that students are hearing. Orally, can they hear the rhymes, separating the compound words, the beginning sound from the rest of the word. Where phonics is more how it looks in writing. So as they start to learn those patterns and all of the many rules that we have in the English language and things like that. So we have been finding that this is a foundational skill that many of our students are struggling with, and then without that strong foundation, just like building a house, then they have more and more trouble as they get older. So we have had professional learning with this. Our literacy coach, Michelle Cook, has spent time in August before school started with training. Last year, one of our grade levels, our kindergarten grade level, was kind of piloting it. So they were dabbling in using this Heggerty, which is a very brief, about 15 minutes a day, of very scripted phonics work that has been added to our existing curriculum. So last year, they started in kindergarten, and this year we're implementing it in 4K kindergarten and first grade. And then students that have shown that they need it, it's been being done in small groups, like in second grade. And also in third and fourth. Again, it's a skill that most students in third and fourth grade have, but they're utilizing that in small groups. So the small group planning and implementation is very important, that we are looking at the data that we have and making sure that in those small groups, students are getting what they need. So if they're missing some of those foundational pieces in the older grades, they're getting them in these small groups, as well as their grade level phonics instruction. Also, new ELA standards came out in 2020. Sorry, my microphone's a little, can you hear me okay? So not good timing, right? We all know what happened in 2020. And being new here, I needed to really learn, have they looked at the new ELA standards with our existing curriculum, and to make sure that everything is aligned and that we're following our ELA standards. We have a strong curriculum, but I think we were finding over the past few years, the people before me, that there was some additional need in that phonics area, and hence the adding of Heggerty this year to fulfill a lot of that. So that's one of the pieces of things that we're working on as well. So that's our literacy goal. And moving on to math. Many of our students were underperforming in math, and again, need to have that stretch goal or more than a year's growth to reach our grade level proficiency. So we have many students that are striving. So again, our goal here is by spring of '23, 80% of our students who did not meet grade level proficiency standards will demonstrate at or above grade level proficiency standards as measured by the iReady assessment. So some of the key action steps, the work that we're doing here, is our professional learning to be, make sure our teachers are being very clear with learning intentions. And this is something that Dom and I are doing along with Erin at some of those in-service days. Helping teachers to make sure they're being very clear with what the learning objective is, and then what that success criteria is, or how students will know when they've mastered it, and then also helping teachers with that progress monitoring along the way, the exit tickets, and those informative instruction, that data that informs their instruction along the way. Also, we had the wonderful gift of being able to have all of our teachers trained in August with the Advantage Math Recovery, or AVMR, we call it, which is an excellent program in math. So all teachers had that in August. They've now done the assessment. Some teachers in the lower elementary grades have done it with all students. Others have done it just with their students who were performing below grade level proficiency. And this really informs their instruction it gives them the very details of what each child needs. And then those teachers are doing that in small groups in their classroom, even one-on-one. It just depends on the needs of the student. And again, using that AVMR data, those small group math skills are being utilized. One thing I didn't mention prior, in the literacy goal, we do have the benefit of having interventionists that are also supporting that work. However, we don't have a math interventionist, so that is all student-driven or staff-driven, our teachers, for our math goal. Any questions that I can answer?
I was wondering about with the AVMR. So prior to that training, was there small group time built in, before, like the math block prior to AVMR? Did that have small group time as well, or is this something now extra that teachers have to try to fit in within the same amount of time while also teaching the same curriculum?
Good question.
Make sense?
To my understanding, teachers have flexibility in how they're going to meet their learning goals. So most teachers would teach in a workshop type format where they would do the instruction for the whole for the whole class. And then students were working in small groups and independently. They also have the resource of the Ready Classroom, so they can go on the computer and their MyPath and do very specific to their learning, while teachers would pull small groups and work with small groups. So that was part of what most were already doing. So now they're utilizing this new learning within that time.
Okay, thank you. One other question about the phonemic awareness and the phonics. Lucy Calkins already takes a lot of time, and then we're adding on the phonics, they added the phonics curriculum part of it, and now we're adding the phonemic awareness. Have we thought about maybe looking at our core and seeing if that's the best? This is more maybe for Erin, or
Yep.
we just keep adding and adding, and,
That's
and we
yeah.
have Amplify now, which, we need our science and social studies, so I'm worried
These
about
are
the
great
teachers
questions.
have, the class sizes 23, 24, and some of the second, third graders, so I don't know, I know you guys are thinking about this
Yeah.
too, but
Agree,
I'm worried.
yep. Yeah, these are great questions, and Dom and I, being new, we're really listening and learning a lot this year, and exactly how we spend our time and how we might be able to shift, to shift some things possibly in the future. But you're right, it all takes time. They have found, phonics has been an add-in, so they have their Lucy time, their teacher's college time, and then in addition, they fit in like another 15 minutes in the day for the separate Haggerty phonics instruction. I'd like to be able to have our literacy block be longer than it is, and that's what Dom and I are right now, kind of doing a time audit on where exactly we're spending every minute. And Erin actually also had asked all of the administrators in the last few weeks how we would prioritize the need for looking at new curriculum depending on which subject area. And what we're hearing from our staff is first priority is math. Most people are really wanting to look at other math curriculum options. So I believe that'll be our first priority coming up. And our primary grades, we are looking right now at how we can be a little more flexible with some of our time, but I think we won't be looking at literacy curriculum, but that's a question for Erin for the next few years.
Okay, how long have we had the math curriculum? Do you know?
Well, with COVID, it got a little stretched out. I think we're on year 5 or 6
Okay.
with it.
So not too terribly long, okay. Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Ken?
I just wanted to add, I think it's great that you've, that all the people have just a couple strong goals, rather than, 20. It just, for me, it signals that, these are achievable, there's good measurements. These are the important ones, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And one thing that's been really helpful too is our leadership team. As Erin mentioned, they're the ones that really created these goals and looked at the data and decided these goals and then brought them to the whole, to the whole staff team for review and feedback. And now every month when we have those leadership team meetings, we're reviewing, because we have representation from across the school, they're the ones that are updating and progress monitoring how we're doing towards those goals and then creating the adjustments to the plan if we need to adjust along the way. So it really feels like it's owned by everyone and it's not a top-down kind of goal, so it feels good.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next up is Ms. Naylor and the National Lunch Week set date for revision, budget, and levy.
Yes, so I just have a couple quick things. In addition to homecoming, it is National School Lunch Week. So we have a National School Lunch Week every year, but this year we are fully staffed in the food service department. So Kathy Koyman's able to, it allows her that time to put together some fun things for the different schools. So it's a peace, love, and school lunch theme this year. So they're doing some 60s, 70s themes, and she's got some activities and games and prizes age appropriate for each of the buildings starting tomorrow over the next couple of days. So just thought that would be something fun to report on and celebrate. Secondly, on Friday, DPI is going to be releasing the general state aid numbers. So it's supposed to be on the 15th, but that's on a Saturday. So fortunately, they're not making us wait till Monday. They'll release that on Friday. So with that being said, I'll be able to make all the necessary adjustments to the budget, to the 22-23 budget that will need to be approved. So state statute requires that that be approved on or before the 1st of November. So I'd like to propose our finance personnel meeting that we have scheduled on October 24th to be a special board meeting so I can make those adjustments and we can adopt the levy and adopt the budget and set the levy at that meeting instead of having a committee meeting. So I have it on my schedule, I have it on my calendar actually at 5 p.m. So if that is okay with everyone, we'll just flop that and notice it as a special board meeting and get that approved that night at 5 p.m.
Will it be at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m.?
I think if it works for everyone's schedule, we'll just leave it at the same time at 5 p.m.
All right.
Did you want to do that at the high school, at the LMC? Since that's a special meeting, it should be
Sure.
relatively short.
Sure. Let's move the location as well.
See what the availability is of the, we'll let you know, we'll check tomorrow.
Okay.
Would it be the special board meeting second or the finance?
I think we can combine it into one.
Oh, into one, okay.
So we can discuss the topics that we were planning on discussing and then also have it noticed so that we can approve the budget.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That's all I have.
All right. Moving on to Dr. Olson's reports.
All right, I know I have this in writing, but I still want to read this out loud for the public. This past week was School Board Recognition Week, and I don't think the work that all of you do can be understated. And I know as district administrator, I think I'm more appreciative of a very solid, supportive board than anybody else. So I'll just read what I wrote. I don't think there are many people who could have taken on the task of a school board member the past 3 years and done it with such grace as all of you. The school board has stayed united with decisions that weren't always popular. It's easy to see that you have our students' best interests at the heart of your conversations and actions. Our staff also sees your hard work and knows that your goal of developing and retaining effective leadership and staff is at the forefront of decisions that impact their work environment. I can see evidence of this by our school culture and our ability to hire the best and brightest. Thank you for your tireless work. You have truly made a difference in the lives of our students and staff. And I can't understate or overstate that last remark too, that as things were being broadcast across the state about districts' inability to hire and fill positions, we were one of those few districts that really did not have the hurdles that a lot of other people did. As Tasha said, we're fully staffed in food service. Obviously, we always need bus drivers, but we really had some very, very strong hires in our teachers and our paraprofessionals this year, and it just makes all the difference in the world. So thank you. And we have one last referendum open house on Thursday night. I was watching Claudia's state tennis meet. Unfortunately, that's 6 o'clock on Thursday during our open house. But we just, so she knows, we support her anyway. But I'm looking forward to the ability to interact with the public again and be able to answer some of their specific questions again. So its election is coming up very quickly. And that's all I have.
Any questions? All right, moving on to action items. 6A, early graduation request. Dr. Olson or Ms. Naylor, do you have any updates?
You skipped over the consent agenda.
Well, there you go. We'll just go back to 5 then, as we should have done. 5, we'll go to the consent agenda. The consent agenda includes the approval of the following: the September 12th regular meeting minutes, the September 19th facility committee proceedings, the September 26th Finance Personnel Committee proceedings, September's Treasurer's Report and Vouchers and Invoice, Start College Now requests, and the personnel requests. Are there any individuals who would like an item pulled out of the consent agenda to discuss specifically or move?
I just want to point out that I'm not listed as being present at the September 12th meeting, yet I made all kinds of motions at that meeting. Just an omission of my name.
Got it.
All right. I will get that corrected.
Any other comments?
I just want to point out our Start College Now course requirements and just applaud those students who have taken on that challenge. And some of these kids, they have taken on more than one class. So I just thought that was completely awesome to have the opportunity to do that and then take on so many. I mean, like some of these kids like EMT and nursing and teaching and just some amazing classes that the kids have opportunities to take. So congratulations to them.
All right. Is there any others? All right. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented and with Board Member Lund's addition?
I move the board approve the consent agenda as presented with the appropriate changes to that report.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right. Hearing none, I ask for a roll call vote.
Ken Imers,
Aye.
Kirk Lund,
Aye.
Amy Litcher,
Aye.
Brianna Beselick,
Aye.
Andrea Graham.
Aye.
All right. It's been passed. And now we will move on to 6A. And now I will ask again, any updates for the early graduation requests?
So as I noted, I have been speaking with the students, just wanting to get more information, just in light of the information with the Start College Now, and just trying to get their story of what they plan on doing with graduating in the middle of the school year. So was able to connect with one student so far today. So it's been interesting to hear their individual stories and their reasons for wanting to graduate early.
Is it typical to have quite like a lot of students? Is that something that we?
I think we've seen an increase in the past. I mean, it's really technically the board really can't not approve this. It's, per board policy, as long as students have met the requirements, for the graduation policy, they can graduate. And just, some of them have either, college or tech school ambitions. Some have work ambitions, so they all have good reasons for wanting, but I think it's an average amount.
All right. Then I ask for a motion for the early graduation.
I'll move the board approve the 8 Lake Mills High School seniors for early graduation and congratulate them on their graduation.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
I just was going to add too, they, with their request, write in and kind of give a outline of what their plan is, and just the aspirations for some of these kids is really fun to look at. And I mean, 17, 18-year-olds to already have their feet in the ground ready to start running is cool to read.
All right. Hearing no other questions, I will ask for a roll call vote on the motion.
Kirk Lund,
Aye.
Amy Litcher,
Aye.
Brianna Beselick,
Aye.
Andrea Graham,
Aye.
Ken Imers.
Aye.
Okay. Moving on to action item purchase of school bus. Ms. Naylor, do you have anything?
Nothing much more to add other than what I had put in the content. To maintain our fleet, we purchase a new bus every year. So these are the 3 bids that we were able to obtain. The recommendation is to go with a pre-owned bus, given the increase of the cost of a bus from past years. It's quite significant, but our recommendation for that is to purchase the pre-owned Thomas bus for $104,723. And this, as a reminder, is for the 23-24 school year. So that's for that next budget. And the lead time on the vehicle is why we're doing it as early as we are.
All right. Is there a motion?
I'll move the board approve the purchase of a pre-owned 2023 Thomas school bus from Nelson's Bus Service in the amount of $104,723.
I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I ask for a roll call vote on the motion.
Amy Litcher,
Aye.
Brianna Beselick,
Aye.
Andrea Graham,
Aye.
Ken Imers,
Aye.
Kirk Lund.
Aye.
All right, it passes. The next also involves Ms. Naylor, the approval of the audit proposal.
Yes, so as I had brought up in our August meeting, I'd like to propose continuing to work with Whitfley as our professional audit service for the 23 and 24 school years. I did put in the audit bid results back when we did that in 2020, as well as the cost proposal from Whitfley for the next 2 years. So there is a slight increase due to inflation and kind of staying competitive with their competitors, or staying within the market. So nothing that I don't think that wouldn't be expected or reasonable. So I, with your approval, would like to move forward with Whitfley for the next couple of years.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll move the board approve the cost proposal for professional auditing services from Whitfley as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion or questions?
I just had a question on the membership audit. Is that usually done, or is it?
So it's you're chosen by random to have a membership audit. We did have one last year. So unless we're chosen randomly, I should say you're chosen randomly, or every 4 years you'll have a membership audit. We had one last year. I don't anticipate it unless there's a reason that something's flagged, but I don't anticipate having a membership audit this year.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, I ask for a roll call vote.
Brianna Beselick.
Aye.
Andrea Graham.
Aye.
Ken Imers.
Aye.
Kirk Lund.
Aye.
Amy Litcher.
Aye. All right, the board recognizes the value of organized trips for our next item, and excursions away from the classroom is a valuable part of the district, and all overnight trips and trips out of state have to be approved by the board. And are these, I'm assuming these are,
It's been nice to actually see these proposals come back with the pandemic. I know the French club, Ellen hasn't been able to take her kids on a trip, and she's been wanting to do that and talking about that the last couple of years. So she was able to finally plan that. So instead of going to France, they're taking a more modest trip to Quebec, a little bit closer and less expensive. And then the same thing for the music trip as well. So theirs is a little bit more of a local trip down to Milwaukee.
okay. Is there a motion?
I'll move the board approve the 2023 March senior music trip proposal and the 2023 summer Quebec trip proposal as presented, and it is understood that the board will incur no cost and will accept no liability for any funds lost for any reason.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any questions or discussion?
I just wanted to say I was really impressed with the language and friendship materials for the Quebec trip. The detail that they go into and the approach they take sounds really high quality.
Okay. Any others? All right, hearing none, I ask for a roll call vote.
That's me. Ken Imers.
Aye.
Kirk Lund.
Aye.
Amy Litcher.
Aye.
Brianna Beselick.
Aye.
Andrea Graham.
Aye.
All right. 6E, approval of gifts.
I'll move the board accept the following gifts, and always thanking our generous donors for their continued support in our students and programs within our district. The first is a $100 donation to the high school's math and science department from the Schweitzer Engineering Laboratories in recognition of their employee, Tom Hemmingson. The second is a $1,000 donation to the high school baseball program from the Giambetti family. The third is a clarinet donated to the high school band valued at $1,000 from Peggy Hartwig. The fourth is $1,500 contribution towards the purchase of a Gaga ball pit at the elementary school from the Lake Mills Area Community Foundation. And last is a $1,638 donation to the Lake Mills Area School District's food pantry, The Mill, from the Pyramid City 5K hosted by the Lake Mills Rotary Club. So thank you.
A second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. And as always, we definitely thank the generous donors.
I have to say, it is amazing. Every time we have a meeting, the community commitment to helping out is really something else.
We're very lucky.
Okay, do I have a roll call vote to approve?
Kirk Lund,
Aye.
Amy Litcher,
Aye.
Brianna Beselick,
Aye.
Andrea Graham,
Aye.
Ken Imers.
Aye.
All right, for our upcoming board agenda items.
All right, so we have the special board meeting, which we'll not have at 6, but at 5 on October 24th. And then I apologize for having to reschedule the policy committee meeting with being out sick at the beginning of the week. I wanted to push that back and also have some time to collect some of the school resource officer data and the associated policies and some sample contracts to be able to go through with the board. And already, we're going to be seeing at our next board meeting, will be post-election, so the November 8th election results. I'm sure that'll be a big topic of conversation. And then already, we're turning the corner with the notice of board elections. Amy's term is up for election this year, and so we'll be putting out more information as far as running for office and so on and so forth. I hope to be able to bring you the SRO contract for the November 21st board meeting, and then I'm going to have Ben Dayton give an update on the rec department. And as a reminder, this meeting is a week later than our normal second Monday due to the fact that I'm out of office that second Monday in November.
Okay. All right. With that, then we move to the, we have a motion on the board docs to move to closed session to discuss administrator goals. Do we have a motion?
I move the board adjourn to executive session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85, Parent 1, Parent C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the government body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. District administrator goals.
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Do we have we need a roll call motion to go into closed session?
Kirk Lund,
Aye.
Amy Litcher,
Aye.
Brianna Beselick,
Aye.
Andrea Graham,
Aye.
Ken Imers.
Aye.
All right, we will move into closed session.
I was wondering if I could just take a quick